So when you add that to the 4, you're half.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this.
So I think you have to realize that some things can be bonded and some things cannot be.
Oh, I do, I was part of all those, Susan. We
Yeah.
brought the first leasing program to the town, to another finance director, and it's been moved forward on that. I consider that somewhat separate, because you make those decisions in that year. Okay, but the bonding issue that's gonna come to question in November, I was just hoping that there's gonna be more balance based on infrastructure and the park as well, so it was more appealing to the taxpayer.
Well, it could be. I don't know,
Well, I think you can.
frankly, what the board is going to do.
I think what's, yeah, I think what Susan,
Away from the park number, we know what that is.
no, I think Susan already said it tonight, and I think the reality is, from what I understand, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, we've set the 10 million. It is not set in stone 6, 3.5, and 500.
Right.
We have the ability to adjust those. We do not have the ability to go over the 10. That's what I comprehend as of now, and I'm with Kitch. You were frustrated that,
Yes,
we
Kathy?
ran out of time, so.
Could you review that again, as far as the time frame for this now? We're gonna have a public hearing next Tuesday?
There's no more time.
So then,
That's it.
as far as the breakdown of the 10 million, when do we have to come up with that?
Yes.
Good question. Okay. Tuesday, you have a public hearing. Wednesday, you have to make your decision. A week from tomorrow. And remember Ryan Curley told us that you have to have it into him by the 8th of September?
Yeah.
Right? Is that
My
true?
only, yeah, and my hesitation is I thought I saw an email tonight that said we had more time for that. The latest email, I don't have my phone with me, that came tonight said, then we'll decide the town meeting date.
Oh, the town, the minutes include the fact that the public hearing has to be held before the question is set. The town meeting, okay, at which there is not a vote, but again, this is a legal requirement, is typically held in October. And the town meeting is called to discuss the referendum question, similar to what we do with the annual budget. And then it is adjourned to the vote, which is in November.
Oh, it's just adjourned to that vote,
Yes.
not another, there's not an additional vote?
No,
Okay.
that's my understanding. That's
What is
what
taking place on September 7th?
this board has to have the bond question ready to give to the town clerk by the state mandated date of September 8th. Technically, our attorney told us that you could make a decision on the 8th, but I'd like to at least have one day.
Just to back up, I thought, because I attended the meeting on Friday, I thought the bond council said that we were having our public hearing on Tuesday the 6th, and the town meeting was going to be on the 7th.
No, that's the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Okay.
The town meeting is more of a formality. And in the past, it's held 7 to 10 days before the bond referendum. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. But that is not a decision-making opportunity, it's a call.
This is something
on
that we're not
charter.
used to. No, it's unusual, for sure.
Well, then help me out a little bit, because I did attend the meeting on Friday with bond council.
Yeah.
My understanding was that, to answer some of these questions, there's $10 million broken down between 3 different areas. That essentially that's a ceiling. And, so you can't change this and say it's 7 million for the park. It's a ceiling that you have to have, so you can't change it, change it really in one direction. And just to talk about that a little bit, I mean, I went with the $6 million for the park. I felt that a lot of people have been asking for that opportunity to vote on that, so that's what that is. The $3 million, that was broken down. I'm sorry, the 3.5 million was broken down for $1 million for the sidewalks. But I do believe that the town needs to start addressing $2.5 million was for roads, and it was sort of left open. Bond counsel did indicate that that does have to, the roads and the sidewalks do have to be indicated. We have to indicate specifically what they are. I think there were two roads that were suggested, Brownstone and Spring Street. I don't know that I'm in favor of repairing either one of them at the moment, particularly with a whole bunch of other issues that are floating around with water, sewage, pipes, and what we're doing with all of that. I think that needs to be decided first. And the $500,000 were for really the four issues that appeared on the long-range capital report that appeared to me to be bondable. I don't think there really was anything else that was bondable, with the exception of, I guess, Gildersleeve School, which I had never received a report, no one had ever talked about, so I couldn't really vote on that number, which I understand has changed from $500,000 to $1.5 million almost overnight. So, you know, we weren't gonna put that on there without having some discussion about it. My understanding, though, from bond counsel was that it seemed to me that the townspeople were able to change these numbers somewhat at a meeting. Am I totally wet on that?
I think you could just dig in, just, you know, in the public hearing, talk to y'all, and then when you do the next money, you could lower things. You can't go lower, you guys can lower, maybe the question. So when you vote that next night, I believe you have the ability to go,
Yeah.
since now we're going to do this.
Okay.
Yes, or move around.
Well, one thing that to add on what you just said, and I think Sue, you're gonna bring it up, we need to know, the town council needs to know, is, in my head, and I think, hopefully, Rick's got it too, that when we were talking about, roads and sidewalks, if he was gonna redo a whole road like that, we were considering, water mains and sewer mains in that design, and, if that is the case, you just needed to, let the bond council know to add that in, so it would say like, in the question, it would say, roads, water and sewer mains, and sidewalks. Because I think like, I believe as part of Spring Street, that was one of the big things, they were gonna fix the water main and the sewer main if there was one, and the roads and sidewalks.
And when does he need that answer?
You did that by this,
So you need to tell us that.
So,
So in other words, if you're gonna do Spring Street, for example, there's a water main there, and there might be sewer. Would you like the ability for that repair to include those utilities? And if so, then he would change the wording in the resolution. And while you're thinking about that, was there one other question too? That he had?
The one other question is similar, is in the resolution, there can be language that lists all of the projects that we have. And then, there could be language that's based upon the vote of the selectmen. If you do, say you do your parks or whatever, and some miraculously get done at 5.5 million, and you want to move 500,000 to the road. Based, and they can add language in to say that the board of selectmen has the ability to do that via a vote.
By the board.
By the board, but they would have, you have to tell it that you want that language in the resolution. Otherwise, you would just do, you know, if you do 6 million, you do exactly as it is, 6, 2.5, 1, 5.
all right.
Could you go back to Spring Street? I don't quite understand. What do we have to decide regarding Spring Street?
I mean, and it could be any street, but
Oh.
I thought like.
And street, I used it as an example.
Outside.
They were gonna dig up a road, I'm saying he's gonna dig it up really good.
Yeah.
And when he gets in there, if the one that we think was to fix a water main or a sewer main under it, in my head, I was thinking that's part of a road, but what Von Council was saying is you have to actually say the specific words.
So
To say-
if you dig it up, you can replace all the utilities that are there, or
Right.
maybe put in an additional utility? You have to specify that?
Yeah, I don't think you'd be able to put it in, you would be able to, yeah, you would have to do what, I think, whatever, you have to specify it.
So it all has to be
Okay.
listed.
All right, so,
Kathy, you have a question?
No, no.
I would generally
I'm just
say that you
thinking-
wanna have
I'm
as
hearing
much.
questions over here.
Sorry, I just a comment.
I was just, so every specific piece would have to be listed as part of the question, is that right?
Except for the, I think the miscellaneous should be okay.
So miscellaneous is as broad as miscellany?
Yeah.
Okay, and nothing's, there's no specificity attached to that category?
So far, the other openings in these issues miscellaneous.
Okay.
Brian? Did you have a comment?
I was just gonna comment that I think you wanna leave as much flexibility in this as you can, but now I'm not understanding what you're saying. Where'd the miscellaneous come from?
That's the 500,000 capital projects.
So it's the capital projects, it's not really miscellaneous, because, I'm sorry, because I thought we identified those
It's these,
4
right.
items specifically.
Yeah,
So
but
the
he said-
miscellaneous because we weren't sure the dollar value.
Meaning the 170, the 100, the 60, and the 70?
500,000.
Total.
500,000.
So that's 400,000, you added another 100 on, I thought, right?
Correct. But until, I mean, bids are done, you don't really know, so we left it as open as you could for those projects.
So I guess, back, if I may,
Yes.
back to my first question. Can we change the numbers around, for example, if we didn't want 3.5 million in the sidewalk and roads, and we wanted the 500 for miscellaneous, which capital improvement equipment, could we take 500 away from that and add 500? We can do that. I just want to make sure.
I don't think
That's
so.
my,
No, you
We can?
Can or can't?
No.
I've heard two things tonight.
Yeah.
One
Okay.
saying we
you
can't
know
go
what?
down.
Ben, don't listen to me, listen to the finance.
I would say, I mean, well, you can, one thing you can do is Wednesday you can ask the bond council when they're at the meeting. But I thought that each one of those items was the maximum.
The maximum, but, okay, but you could shift, oh, only shift
But
it
see
down.
that,
Not shift it around to total 10?
It was listed individually in the question, right?
Thank you.
Then how could you,
That's what it said.
how could you just change it?
that's what I was getting at, right.
I'm sorry.
You can lower.
You could lower.
So you wanna make the bond, you wanna make the park $2 million, go out, so you go 4 million out. That you can do. You wanna make, you wanna make roads 1 million, make a road 1 million.
Or-
But if you have vague language, Tom,
One at a time. Tom?
Again, based on the way that, well, I believe the way it was explained to me, it's the way that the question was written. It was one question, and it was a total of 10. So you had to do whatever that was, those were the maximum. You could go under, but you can't go above.
So if you took $1 million out of the park, and the bond has to be behind us.
That's what I'm hearing.
Sounds like it.
You can't shoot it.
Ask the
Well,
question.
that was Terrence.
Because you have to make a
Right.
decision. You know, is it perfect? No. We have to, you're bound by the law, and you have to do this. That, unfortunately.
No,
Listen, I suppose
Come
if
on,
you, if you,
we're trying to do our best here.
if you
know?
had other infrastructure needs that, to me, don't appear to be bondable on this list, you could do it next year, I suppose, you could do it next week, I mean, do it at a different time.
Yes, this is not
Certainly,
the all
it's
and
not,
end all.
you know.
So does the park, $6 million, what does the question say? Does he give you the leeway to say other park improvements, or is it just for Route 17?
Great question.
Route 17.
So if we had the 6 million and we came under, and there was monies left over, could that be shifted to?
That's
does
what
that have to be listed?
that question, Carla, is what Bruce Chudwick, our bond counsel, is asking the selectmen. Do the selectmen want, in the event, let's say that the 6 million goes forward, okay? But only 4.5 is needed. Do the selectmen want the flexibility to use that delta amount and move it to another item within that question? Now, did I say that correctly, Tom? Yes, he's saying yes.
Another, just for clarification,
Right.
another item within the question relating to the park only.
No, that's what he's saying, is that once you get to that point where,
So you could do another road if you want.
yeah,
if you say so
Exactly.
tonight.
So you guys, the language in the resolution, but it says you guys can make that vote. So
Didn't that have to be decided on Friday?
Thursday.
The language is, you used to tell us about that language in the letter, they'll do
He
it.
said he could
Okay.
change that part.
Which I can't imagine why you wouldn't want
I
that.
think it gives you some flexibility.
I would think you'd come up with flexibility to use the park improvement.
Yeah, flexibility.
Though I don't think you're gonna come in below $6 million.
But still, you.
You want
You want, yeah.
You always want the flexibility.
There's no downside. But this project at 10.
Get to you in a minute, Rick.
Got somebody here?
No, finish what you're saying, Rick, please.
The 10 million seems to be, a figure we start out with, I think the public is aware of it. So that, and it's a figure that's in the resolution. And then now we have another 1.2, which we're gonna be looking at, so we're gonna be up at 11.2. So that's, and if we go forward with, Tom's going forward with the add-ons for the leasing. So in reality, we're looking at 11.2.
What's the other one, too? I'm sorry.
I'm adding that.
Oh, just for the lease?
Yeah, for
Okay,
leasing.
okay, fair.
So then the question is,
But that's not a question for
That
us.
you don't need to decide tonight, and the selectmen can determine that they want to spend more than that. That is up to the selectmen at another
The
time.
1.2 is essentially a budget year question, I think, what you're gonna buy, how you're gonna do it, what you're
Yeah,
gonna do.
but the point is, the restriction is on the bond question. Rick?
That's been good. I guess you kind of opened it up, so I'd like to just, before we get too much further, I think I have a real problem with the meeting that you held on Friday. I'm gonna read you the notice of that meeting says, set public hearing date for the bond in question. Set special town meeting date for the bond in question. Now, when I look at the minutes, it looks like that meeting took 1 hour and 35 minutes with bond counsel there and the finance director there, I guess to just set a meeting date. Now, when I looked up Robert's Rules of Orders for Dummies, it says this. This is a special meeting, right? It says, at a special meeting, members can discuss only the business that was stated in the notification, which is referred to as the call of the meeting. If some emergency business is transacted for which no notice was given, the organization must ratify that a business at a regular meeting or another special meeting. In another place it reads like this: special meetings are called only if something important comes up that must be dealt with before the next regular meeting. Special meetings always require previous notice. Special meeting notices must include not only the date, time, place, and location, but they also must specify all the business to be included in the meeting. Nothing, repeat, nothing can be considered in a special meeting if it's not included in the notice. Now, if I read the meeting notice, it was to set a hearing date.
Right.
And that's what was done. I believe, and I've attended every meeting that you've had on this bond question. It appears to me that an hour and 35 minutes with bond counsel and the finance director and a discussion of the issue and setting dollar amounts is beyond what that meeting notice is.
Okay, let me
Go ahead.
clarify. Bruce Chudwick told me that we needed to set the public hearing date and that there was a need for a special town meeting as well. So I noticed the meeting, and when Bruce Chudwick and Brian can concur, to set a public hearing date, you have to have a call of the meeting. So just a minute,
Say it.
please.
Go ahead.
Okay, I saw you gesturing, so I
Yes, I am.
just. So the attorney that advises the town assisted the selectmen with the meeting. And in order to set a public hearing date, he told us you needed to have the call of the meeting. So when you set a public hearing date, you do have to have a qual of the meeting. And I will add that Bruce Chudwick is far smarter than I am in terms of bond questions. And I don't pretend to know all of the answers. And that's why you have Shipman and Goodwin as our attorney. Are there any other further questions from the selectmen? Well, I'm asking if there's any further questions from the selectmen.
Yeah,
Well,
my question would
it's
be,
not on the board.
was it noticed properly, I guess, back to?
Yes, it was. I can do nothing more than have our bond attorney as our counsel.
Well, the bond attorney wouldn't necessarily be Robert's rule, that would be more, I would think.
Then,
rules.
he sets these meetings for towns all over the state in terms of how you do this procedure. I don't do that. That's what you hire an attorney for. Right, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on Robert's rules of what, sure, but, yeah.
I don't know what more you can do than have the person that is hired to give you the proper legal advice. And that is what we did.
You have to
Fred?
have the language in there for the hearing, so that's, the language has to be properly placed when the hearing occurs.
Mhm.
So that would appear to be within the call of the, I don't see any problem with it.
And at the public hearing, I will point out that he did tell us changes would be recommended, and that the selectmen, when they meet on Wednesday, is it the 7th? 7th, can make some changes. And his recommendation is that you do not go over the amount that is so noticed. And I'm going to take a brief recess because I need to drink water. So excuse me. Just have a brief recess. Kyle, it's a brief recess. Do you want another recess, or shall we? I'm sorry, I was very thirsty. I'm sorry, and I said a couple things to people outside the meeting. So we're back in session. Are there any other further comments on, let's see, I think we're on, let's move on to discussion for public policy.
You said your bond attorney recommended you don't go above the number you said, $10 million.
Yes.
Does that mean it's just a recommendation? You can't use
We
more than
follow
you decide?
his advice.
Is it advice based on financial conditions or based on a legal precedent that you set a number and that's the number we need to stick with? Like what was the advice? That's standard practice, we said $10 million, that's what we should carry forward until next Wednesday, Thursday?
Tom, did you want?
The number was decided by the selectmen. I'm not gonna go and tell you the number. The four selectmen over there decided the number.
My understanding from bond counsel is that you can't go over the number that is set. The numbers were set at 6 million because, as we've talked about tonight, there was 5.5. They were talking about the additional money thrown in, so that's why it was at 6. There was a discussion dealing with sidewalks for $1 million. The number was 3.2. The discussion was to put $1 million in as far as that goes. There was some discussion about roads. I think there's some disagreement about that, but that was $2.5 million. The other $500,000, which is what I suggested, was really for 4 items that appeared to me to be long-term projects that were bondable. And that's how I arrived at that number anyways. And then my understanding from bond counsel is that you can't go over that.
Okay, that's
And
all,
you're just-
that was
you're
the
just-
clarification, because it was,
Right.
you worded it as recommended, so it's really, you can't go over.
Can't, is
Okay.
how I
That's all
understand it,
need
yes.
is clarification.
And can't, I understood it on Friday that you can't go over that number for each one. And it sounds like we're talking about something different, but I didn't believe that you could transfer from one to another, one pocket to another pocket. If there's some mechanism where that gets done according to council, then I rely on him, because I don't know the answer.
Sure. Okay, we have, do you want to move on to discussion topics for policy? Possible topics for policy? Is there anything?
Maybe we can just revisit what we do in town, particularly with the long-range capital.
Sure.
And the best approach going forward. And, you know, I know that there have been a number of issues, and this is not an excuse, but certainly over the past number of years when there were issues with the economy, things kind of froze and things were not being purchased. But with that said, and put aside for a moment, I think that, you know, I will confess as a member of the Board of Selectmen, you know, this is really a volunteer position. I don't, you know, I practice law. You know, and if somebody tells me that we need to buy a truck for $250,000, you know, I can ask questions and that sort of thing, but I don't have that knowledge in terms of what we need. I can't sit here and say, you know, we need 42 trucks and 3 police cruisers and this, that, and the other thing. I have to rely on information that comes from somewhere. And I think that commission is the appropriate vehicle to do that, because you guys are all familiar with this, you spend the time doing it, and I think we have to take that information from you and rely on it. I don't really think it's sufficient, well, I think it would be more appropriate if we did this over a longer period of time. In other words, if there's a 1 year, and don't hold me to this, but 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years, so you can actually kind of see what's coming down the road. Because I mean, I can look at this and you have 1 to 3 years and what's happening in year 6, and all of a sudden you got something coming down the road that you're not aware of. And I know that you can't pinpoint it, but I do think that we need to have some sort of system in place where we're doing that year after year, so you can actually do this intelligently.
I agree with that. I think, you know, Mike, when you stood up and basically said you've been ignored for years, I think it should be put on the record that that's not gonna occur in the future. We do appreciate what you, or at least I can only speak for myself, I appreciate what you do. And I think we should listen. And I think it should be set in stone that this board, you should present to us as a whole board, all the information, and then a decision's made that way moving forward. Obviously, we're not talking about all the big issues on the pond today, and maybe we resolve some of those through the bonding. But I thank you also and your entire board.
Well, policy changes that we look at, and we go with it. Sometimes you vote on it, like Brian said, it's a 3-year plan. That's it. It's 3 years, you want to revisit it for 3 years. This is the plan. Fund this, it is for 3 years. It used to be 5, but as I said, times got bad, let's go back to 3. Right now, we have a 1-year maintenance plan. Basically what it is. Times are bad, there's no money. Times are good, we throw a little more money, or if there's a need, because, you know, payload is down and out, and you need one, we'll buy one. So to do best for the taxpayer, we just have a 3-year, I would just call it a little small, 3-year plan. So when it comes to you, the numbers are there, like the 5-year plan every year, and you're voting on it, it's going for 3 years. You budgeted, that's the number for the following year, And then again, after the 3rd year, we'll revisit it with the directors, come together with another 3-year plan. It takes it off of you guys.
All I'm saying by extending it is there have to be capital assets that are not being replaced every 3 years. Something's gonna have to be done every 20 years or 25 years or 10 years. So you want to be aware of that information. That's why I'm saying that it should be extended beyond that. So if you keep doing a 3-year plan, eventually 20 years down the road, we're in 4th year of your thing, it comes to us and, you know, there's $6 million.
Public Works is all the information on vehicles, ages, so we kind of know what's coming
Sure.
up. But again, what's the absolute need? That's the flavor of the day when we come to you. We work hard with the first level in town. A lot goes into this. They come up with a number that's gonna fit the budget correctly, and then we present it to you guys usually. It passes the board, it goes to the town, and they vote on it as recommended, it passes, that's the number.
Sure, it's not perfect, but, you know, just looking at this, I would, and correct me if I'm wrong, for instance, this Gildersleeve School project, I don't think was suggested last year or last week. I mean, it just seems to be something that just popped up and,
It would be easier to have, like I said, if you had a 3-year plan that you voted on, so you voted on a 3-year plan in 2017, it's good for 2012. So things can't pop up. You're forcing the directors to actually do their job and come up with a plan that's sellable to us and yourself. Instead of just firing numbers off, we need $1.5 million to the goal.
In all fairness, the Gildersleeve School, I think that came about because the Board of Ed chose to shift a grade, and I thought it was a good idea. And I think that is now what's impacting, so we all know what's going on. It's not just that they want a new parking lot or a new configuration. There's an added grade there now, and there is.
Yeah, but my
arguably-
understanding, and maybe this is just through the grapevine, is they want to do it at Valley View School, they want to do it at, I refer to the junior high kids, I guess, and they want to
Some
do
of them
that.
need
So,
improvements, like, some of the parking lots are falling apart, so they need improvements. When they say
we're not
finally-
talking about improvements, that would get covered, so they were talking about,
Yes, that's,
Well,
it's a whole new project, and.
that's a major.
Well, part of it was why, and I don't know if I think the sidewalk got closed before I was on the Board of Ed, the sidewalk from Bartlett Street in. So then that congested, that was a major drop-off point for children, and the parents then had to go in the main entrance, and that congested it. And now adding a grade, there is real issues there. I mean, I don't think this is
But that's not for tonight, really.
I agree.
That
I
just-
agree.
My
was just
only
pointing
point
out,
is
so-
that you just need the
Changes.
information if you're making a decision from here. So with Gildersleeve, correct me if I'm wrong, but Rick probably was a few years ago, it seems like we provided money for this exact problem anyways, right? Because we're concerned about safety and people, it seems to be, so you were trying to get another access over to the other side.
You allocated money to resurface the existing paved areas, there was no change made. This particular project is to address safety issues with buses versus cars.
And what, I guess, we don't need to get into this so much, but, because we're gonna talk about that at some point, but why is that an issue today and it hasn't been for the last however many years?
It has been an issue for many, many years, and the feeling was, and again, just through the board, not me, they asked us to sit in, was that they were going to increase the number of cars by increasing the grade level, so it was going to increase the number of students, it was going to exacerbate an already bad situation, so the thought process was it would just make things more unsafe, more people congested, so the thought process was to, by virtue of the fact of choosing to add more children and teachers, et cetera, to make it safe. And they're all about, as we well know, safety.
Sure, although my understanding of just looking at that project was really adding, I don't know, umpteen number of parking spaces.
It was to address the proposed increase in students and teachers, and at the same time addressing a pre-existing safety problem that's always been. So
No,
the
but fair-
idea was to actually separate the buses with temporarily done in a kind of harder manner, so that the buses stay separate from the people dropping the children.
I understand that piece of it, I guess I didn't understand all the additional parking spaces, so even if there were 2 additional classes, I mean, the kids aren't driving to school, there's teachers that drive to school, so.
What we understood from the superintendent and the teachers, both down in New and the Gildersleeve again, was that when they have, for example, at night, they have a number of times where they have PTO, where children's oriented, I don't even know what they are. And at those times, they can't even come close to handle, not let the superintendent or one of the principals tell you how many cars they have to park. So there is a need at times, and I guess they were trying to address this.
And drainage issues up back, it's always got water in back.
We had to park on the grass today, during both the houses, but that's on a beautiful day. If we get snow this coming up there, we won't have any place to park in Thursday.
But on your policy change, I like your idea if we do go on a 3-year plan, and this one pops up, say this pops up, and everybody's gonna wait their turn, and 1.5 is gonna wipe out everybody else's project, it just pushes people off. And we continue to do that, because who yells the loudest gets the most, and that's what's gonna happen.
Well, there's just things you can't foresee, I know that's gonna happen,
But you actually make this start doing the job a little better.
yeah.
So the one, that is like the 1.5 million we're talking about, which pops up, that was like 500,000, I think.
At the time when I met with the superintendent, he didn't have a hard number, and he said 500,000, that's what I think he was thinking. And it's not.
It seems like
Like, someone telling us 1.5, and he's like, really?
It seems like, you know, and it's done a good job isolating what we have to look at in some sort of priority. But it appears like we need even more of a priority. There's no way we're gonna be able to do, we look at all the things on the list. We just can't do it in a 3-year period, a 5-year period. So it's almost like we need to, a more, looking at the absolute needs, even refining that down so that, you know, and that can be dealt with. This is absolutely critical, have to do it, and that becomes the priority. And then the other things start to stack up, and things may change in the future, but we have to realize we just can't do all this. I mean, there's millions and millions and millions of dollars that we could look at, and if we could print the money, we'd be fine, but we can't, so.
That's what we kind of do.
We have to
We get
realize.
information from the directors in January, we usually have a meeting.
Yeah.
Each commission member would prioritize what's important to them, to the body, and then we vote on it, and that means with the first select woman in town, they give us a hard number, and we discuss it over and over. We know what's needed, we've been down a lot, we kind of know what's needed, and then it gets presented to you guys at your workshops, and then it goes from there.
Fred, I would agree with you, but I mean, I think there are some things here that are not needs. You know, and I'm just looking at this one page where you're talking about replacing the infield clay, new lights at Main Street courts, something about trees and for shade in a park. I mean, you know.
Part of your park and rec things, it's done.
But I mean, like, putting trees up for shade in a park cannot possibly be in.
Well, it's a whole
considered a need.
project, it's a whole project encompass, I broke it down into things. So do you want your park to look nice, or do you want to have completed, as we do now, so we're always chasing the tail?
Those items were divided, and what happened is, you know, Mike looked at them, when they were looking at them, we grouped them together because economies of scale, if you're gonna be disrupting property, then you're gonna run those together. So some of those weren't necessarily on the most absolute need list, it's just that that's kind of how they got rolled together, because it just.
So you're suggesting they're wants?
Yes, I mean, that doesn't seem like
Because we don't
economy
put
of
trees in
scale.
our parks. Right, I mean.
It seems more like a want as opposed to if you need, you know, a truck to get something done.
Right,
you know,
so I think, so again, I'm not sure what kind of policy you guys are doing this in, but I would suggest that part of the policy has to be that the long-range capital should be jointly with the Board of Selectmen. It's more than once a year, because it's too late if we do this now
Yes.
and decisions are made. So I agree there should be a 3-year plan, but there are other things that I think we can't wait for 3 years to figure out what's coming up next. So part of that goes on, but I think part of your policy, I would suggest, would be of several joint sessions throughout the course of the year. So come budget setting time, it's not, okay, let's scramble to figure out what we need. We already have some information up. I would also, and again, maybe this already happens or not, but I would think part of the policy would be that maybe standardly, we're trying to set some type of mill aside for long-term capital, so that there's already money in a pot, as opposed to, again, we'll go back to Park and Rec, I think you had mentioned 25,000 is what it is. So that probably, again, for the budget of Park and Rec, doesn't accomplish very much on a year-over-year basis. So maybe part of the policy is we need as a town to have more commitment to long-range capital growth and what we need in terms of our equipment needs, parks improvement, town facilities and infrastructure. So I mean, I'm not sure if that's kind of where you're kind of going in terms of what the policy is going forward, so we don't get into this predicament where we have $33 million of some kind of need, desire, or want. If we can do it, how do we figure out how to, over the course of every year, allocate a certain amount of money to make these improvements, so we don't get stuck with, hey, now we have $1.5 million, we can come up with the money.
We did try to do this before, through the Charter Revision Commission revision years ago, to try to get 1 mil, in the charter saying 1 mil equal whatever the dollar amount at the time, we go to capital. And they thought it was a great idea. We went for roll letters. Don Goodrich's idea, actually, you gotta have some kind of hard number, it just is not gonna work.
Well, I think we can take some of these ideas and begin to put together a policy, and I think we've certainly made a good restart, if you would, in terms of tonight's meeting. Any other comments on that?
I would only say, since you're talking about all that, so, I mean, should we implement a policy along these lines and, we're gonna meet 3 times a year, this quarter, that quarter, and the other quarter, and you're gonna prepare a report,
What really happens is budget time. I mean, the directors give their information to the finance director, who in turn gets it to us. We set meetings in January, we meet with all the directors, it takes about 4 or 5 meetings, and then we come up with a final report to you.
Well,
But it's always a budget time.
I'm not management, but couldn't it be done through, asking the directors, I mean, Rick's here, I don't know if it makes sense or not, but asking, a director every whatever period of time to prepare a report, and modify it as you go along, because I'm sure there's gonna be things that's not on your radar, that come on your radar. And, at least then, all the information is out there, we're aware of what's coming, and so you're not creating this report from scratch over and over again, you're just modifying it, but, I don't know.
Anything else from Long Range Capital? Any other comments?
Just a quick one, I hope you invest in the Park and Recreation Department.
Okay.
On Middlesex Avenue, Schofield. You don't do them now, within you're not gonna, you're just gonna fall apart.
Have you spoken to the grounds supervisor about his plans for Middlesex Avenue Park? Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah,
It's $225,000.
right. And he has talked with us about that. I didn't know if he talked to you about how he wants to phase that in and how that would be funded. He has talked about that. He has started that project. That's good. So how do you want to wrap that up? Do you want to talk about it at the next meeting? Do you want to talk about it in October? How do you want to proceed?
With what, Susan?
The policy for long-range capital.
Should push, we were kind of busy on pushing on October, so.
Okay.
that's the one we want to do.
Anything else?
I think that we probably should have a policy in place before the end of October. It sounds like the beginning steps are there, that you all meet in January. But from January until the budget's set, you're right, everybody's clawing for the same pot of money. So maybe that initial meeting should be held by end of October. And then you begin to refine what you're looking at, and be ahead of the game, and maybe meet with us early November, then again in January when it's tweaked, but be a step ahead. I think setting a percentage of the budget makes sense. It also allows everyone to have a little bit of a comfort level for when a project just suddenly pops up. And I know that means something that we might have budgeted for will take a back seat? Yes, but at least there will be monies available, and we won't be sitting here like this saying, we thought it was gonna cost this, it's gonna cost more, and we have nothing anyway. I think anytime we can be proactive, it's helpful for everybody involved, for us, for you, for the town. So I would say that one of the things we think about is that we have a policy in effect before the end of October.
Sure.
So can we put it on the agenda for the meeting
Yes.
in October?
Well, if you put it on the agenda for October, you may not be able to finish it by then, but we can certainly put it on that first meeting in
Yes.
October.
Okay.
I can guarantee you won't be able to get input much from the finance department during that time period. I mean, we are 100% in audit season, and all the way through October, November, the December issue, January will come around. You have this, plan here, it's 5 years worth of information. It has millions and millions of dollars in it. It clearly has a very good starting point for anything that's out there. And then every year, the new things that come up that we don't know about, This capital plan is very inclusive and solid. It's just the actual funding of it needs to be accomplished. I mean, it's not that there's a weakness in the capital plan. The capital plan is very strong. I mean, the hours and hours that the directors put in to come up with these policies, these plans and situations is incredible. And then when Susan and I work on the budget, the time that I take to translate that into the budget is very cumbersome, as well as tracking all the authorizations throughout the year. I mean, I just don't know how that would really work from our standpoint, as well as having multiple times when you're trying to reiterate the things that you clearly know are there, and just people don't want to address them. So, I mean,
Susan, so this is what I heard, that October doesn't work and that it would just be looking at the same information over and over again. And that we need to bite the bullet and change the mill rate. That's our only solution to rectify where we are right now. Is that true?
pretty much with the intent of the capital plan, yeah. I mean, you do have to
Okay.
bond it, fund it, lease it, do something. I mean, there's not this plan is very inclusive.
I look at it and it looks inclusive to me too.
It's not all inclusive because, I mean, honestly, people don't put all this stuff in
Right.
because they're not getting funded already.
Right.
So they're like, I'm not gonna go put my school in it, or I'm gonna put.
So I understand, there's a level
Well,
of
that's
frustration.
why I think we need a policy, and that's why I think directors should actually say what they need, whether they think they're getting it or not, and they should lay it out.
It's out there.
I mean, then you know what's going on, you know what's coming down the road. That just seems logical and makes sense to me. I don't know.
But I mean, they do, it's just, I mean, they get 30, this one here is $21 million. And that's not inclusive of all roads. I mean, you could put roads and water mains, then it would be broke, you know?
And if you paved your roads instead of chip sealed them, it'd be even more money. And there-
So,
for example.
you know, unless somebody's coming in here with a magic wand and everything gets paid for right now, we're always going to be behind, correct? So,
We just work toward the goal of trying to accomplish what we can with the money and the resources we have and the ability of what you can do with bond.
So all I'm saying is the more information we have, the better it is. It's easier to make that decision, those policy decisions.
And we agree, that's what, hopefully present good stuff to the capital commission and they can work forward.
and then we maybe logically say, you know, A, B, and C could get done this year. Everything else looks like it probably isn't. But we begin to ease some of the frustration and deal with the problems at hand in an orderly fashion and say, let's move on these. Let's make this our decision and move forward on it. And, you know, I guess I'm afraid, as not just the person that sits here, but as a homeowner in town, what's going to happen with taxes? Because we can't continue this way. I mean, I look at it this way. We can't see this list and hear that, you know, if we don't do the park, we might as well not have a park. And it's not just parks, it's equipment, it's everything. You know, I sat here tonight and listened to our ability to be able to communicate with our dispatchers, both for fire and police. Maybe because I live with a retired policeman, I know how vitally important that is. And you know, now we're talking about the public safety. But we're going to have to make decisions, and they're going to be hard and they're going to cost money, but we have to make decisions. We can't sit over and over again looking at this list and say, oh yeah, we have a really big list, but what are we going to do and what can we do? So I think it behooves us to find a way to address issues, to put money aside, to spend for some, and have a plan as we move forward. And that's what the policy needs to be, and hopefully we can get to a policy, at least presented, have robust discussion on it in the first meeting of October, and hopefully have a vote on it. Maybe that evening, maybe at the second meeting, but let's try to plan by the end of October, we have something in place.
That's a good goal.
And also how you don't try to clean sweep the accounts. You have a balance of the capital, once in a while the board, not you.
Let's do it.
Right.
Clean sweep,
We
over
just-
there, put to next year's budget. That kind of hurts when you're trying to say for a town project was $50,000 a year over
Yeah.
a 4-year period, and that's why we're doing $200,000 a year for 1 year period now, because things seem to, it's just reality, grab what you can.
And I will also point out, there's a lot of good things that we are doing. And tonight, we're trying to be critical of what we need to do, but we also need to point out that the town has been very successful in doing a lot of things. A lot of roofs have been improved, a lot of the capital lease programs have been successful. Our schools are in good shape. Our town hall is in good shape. This senior center is certainly a nice building for meetings. The Buck Foreman is a lovely building, and we have a lot to be grateful for to our taxpayers, ourselves included, in terms of what we fund here in our town. And we do have a lot of good things that we've been able to accomplish, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. Okay, so I
There's
will work on that. Yes.
One quick thing,
Right.
that came up on Brownstone Park. And that's another issue that I think down the road, maybe we should have an agenda item at least and kind of see where we are. I had the opportunity, thanks to one of our constituents, to tour the field. And it is in really bad shape, as Mike said.
Middlesex Avenue?
Yeah, Middlesex.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm in Middlesex. And it's, as we think if this project moves forward with as far as recreation with the park, there's gonna be a lag time, certainly several years, and then we're gonna have to look at how to deal with the fact there are no fields there. We don't have enough fields with our existing fields. So maybe there's something we can do there to do, at least do part of that project to get it moving. It's really in bad shape. I don't know.
Well, I think that, and really, I think that Carl should come and talk to you about his
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
And that would be very, I think, very important to do. See, he does have a plan for that.
Is Ty and Bond giving a presentation on the water and sewer?
Say that again?
Or is someone giving a presentation on the water and sewer?
What do you mean someone? It'll be
I don't know, yeah.
town staff. I don't think the contract with Ty and Bond includes a
That was,
presentation from
it was
them.
initially included, then was excluded.
Yeah, I'll have to double check that. Do you remember?
It was.
It is?
It was, no, it was
Okay.
initially included and then excluded.
I thought,
That's
what I remember,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you want to have a presentation by Ty and Bond, you have to pay for
Is there someone else who's capable of giving that presentation?
Other than the people that wrote the
Yeah.
book, I would say ideally they're the best because they did the investigation. That would be a joint meeting with not only Long Range Capital, but that would include water and sewer.
What is the cost for that presentation?
I can find out.
It was either, I think, $5,000 or something.
Could be.
Five or
I don't
seven?
remember. Could be. But I think it might be worthwhile, because we have some very important decisions to make, of course, about water and sewer. And while Long Range Capital's been looking at all of the matters, this Ty and Bond report is quite in-depth and lots of charts and information there about the town's water and sewer divisions.
It would help to have a presentation, I would see if we get it right out, because we all know what we're talking about. I'm just looking at numbers, I don't know why.
Because you're looking at whether you're going to continue to operate the way you have been, whether you're going to put more money into it. If the ratepayers are going to pay for it, as I've said before, it's something on the order of 1,400 to 1,500 sewer customers that pay for everything, and 2,400 water customers that pay for all of the water infrastructure improvements. And many communities have chosen to regionalize those services. Middletown is looking to put their sewer with Mattabasset. And MDC, as we all know, is a regional water and sewer. So those are big questions, believe me. Water and Sewer Commission would assist us with that as well. But that will be on another agenda as well. Okay, so if we're finished with policy, we'll move on to public comment. And I'll start with this side of the room. Is there anyone on this side of the room? Yes. And we'll start now with this side of the room.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to speak specifically on a Park and Recs issue. We have as a absolute needs the Parks and Rec Department. We have the Middlesex Avenue Mike's Field. Okay. I am here to advocate for the needed capital expenditure dollars to rehabilitate, improve, and maintain the Middlesex Avenue Park, AKA BIZ. No way does this mean I am against the Portland Town Park concept. The two will serve different purposes and audiences at different times. As practical matters, realistically, Portland Town Park is not going to pop up overnight. Would you agree with that? We're not going to have it in a week or two. With the participation group in parks and recreation programs, this space, with the participation growth in parks and recreation, this space is going to continue to be needed. The Main Street play area is nearby. Just cut back through the backyard of the BIZ parking lot. Very importantly, the town owns it. There are no lease obligations. It's not going to slide into the quarry. The longer this is postponed, the more costly it's going to be. BIZ is multi-user. It's used by the school system for recesses, physical education, and they have a jogging, walking program there that's put on. I believe it's the nurse does it. It is part of downtown. It's not out on Route 17, it's part of downtown. Finally, it is the front door to the Portland, Riverfront, and Brownstone exploration and discovery parks, as well as envisioned future Brownstone Avenue development. Yes, there have been problems down there. Director Dwyer and the Portland Police Department have promptly addressed them. As a result, issues have been significantly reduced or eliminated. Here are 3 examples among the many: an egregious, a costly, and a prankish. The most egregious was the visiting team's football player urinating through the fence into my backyard. On either side of me, there were young children on either side of me. One father, he was none too pleased. And Mr. Dwyer immediately addressed the problem included in writing. The football lights were often left on after evening use, either for games or for practices. He asked to be called when it happened. It seldom happens anymore. Before Mr. Dwyer's arrival, the prankish one was the morning I went out into the backyard and found toilet paper hanging from a tree or two. The Portland police were called. The porta potty, and it wasn't Halloween, the porta potty was moved to the opposite side. Mr. Dwyer has worked diligently to manage his programs and to maintain a good relationship between homeowners and users. His success can be measured by the Parks and Recreation's continued program growth, enrollment, timely problem solving, and minimal issues. The Commission has the Parks and Recs capital expenditure proposal, which they've presented this evening, including the Middlesex Avenue Park. I attended the June 12th Parks and Recreation Committee meeting. There were open, in-depth, thoughtful, fiscally responsible, and respectful discussions. The outcome was a reprioritization of the things that were needed, the line items that were needed, and a completion horizon looked at. This will be used by Biz, Parks and Recs, as well as the community. Because the community has limited access to the high school track. The previous Parks and Recs director had developed planned options, none of which was begun. The park is bordered on the south by Middlesex Avenue, east by the Fire Company Number 1, and on the west by Evergreen Avenue, and on the north by Russell Avenue. This is looking at what you see, and I'm going to pass it out. Fred, you've seen it. This is looking at what is in the backyards of the people on Russell Avenue. If you look closely, you will see that there is a fence, and the trees are behind the fence. It is surrounded by 20 homes and a small business. Across the street on the south are the florist shop, its greenhouses, and 2 homes. On the east, 4 Main Street backyards abut it. Across the street on the west are 2 homes and 4 backyards. The latter face the private road, Diggins Avenue. And on the north, 8 backyards abut it. Chronic ongoing problem which seems outside Parks and Recreation's control or purview is the blighted town property behind its north chain link fencing and the overgrowth on it. This to the right is the fence. This is looking forward, and you cannot see the yard next door. The north side fence is not on the shared homeowner town property line for its entire length. Of note, Russell Avenue is lower than the Biz Fields, so there is a problem with water runoff into people's backyards. I understand why the fence juts out. And does not follow the shared property line after a certain point. As the fence moves west to east towards Main Street, the difference, the high-low difference increases. The top of the fence might very well be lower than the hill. It goes this way, moving west to east. And the hill gets deeper and the water runs into the backyards. There are highly invasive vines hanging from the town's trees, which have invaded trees on private property, then have jumped from property to property. In addition to, in this particular section of fencing, it is thick with the same kind of vines and other vegetation. The vines jump from the fence into people's trees. In addition to these vines covering the ground, there's other vegetation behind the fence. Some years ago, Carl Johnson's team thoroughly cleaned the fencing. The sun shone through, which helped with mosquito control. The problem returned. As needed, he or his team have cleaned the gate so it will open and close freely, as well as other incidentals. Carl has answered questions, and he's actually come down from information. For instance, the landlocked property. To my inquiries of elected town leadership, I have received different responses at different times, one of which was the homeowner should clean it. Frequently, there isn't any money. In the fall 2014, after a Board of Selectmen meeting, I asked again, we'll have to do a survey. At the north side fence, here. This is the vines jumping from tree to tree. Fred saw it when it was green, but that's a picture of the winter time, so you can actually see the vines going from tree to tree. On the north side fence of Egalotti Field, the lower Biz Field, there is an old brownstone marker, like so many of the other ones that appear in town. And the picture you have of the fence, the camera was sat on the brownstone marker and the picture was taken. So that shows the property. Prout Acres was developed on a single man's property, Mr. Prout. It was a dairy area. One afternoon that fall, while I was out walking, I stopped into the town clerk's office and I spoke to Mrs. Dillon. As first step, she sent me to the assessor's office. On the aerial map in the assessor's office, Gail found the properties we were looking for. They were on 2 separate sheets. She aligned the sheets and she taped them. Guess what? Property lines straight. And that's the same aerial map that's in Mr. Kelsey's office. She gave it to me, and as well, she gave me 2 volume numbers and sent me back to, quote unquote, Bernie's office to have them researched. There was a recorded survey, a copy of which I have. The information was shared. Selectman Chudzik, a real estate professional, had reviewed the survey on September 29th, 2015, when he and another selectman walked the area. Subsequently, on the survey, I noted a very tiny marking on the survey. It's in the place of the brownstone marker on Egalotti Field. I am asking this board to do the right thing and approve Parks and Recreation Capital Plan. It is past time that Middlesex Avenue be taken care of, and it's going to be the front door to what you're developing on Brownstone Avenue. Remember, this area is used by the school for their recesses, their physical education, and their jogging. It's used by Park and Rec for the same thing. And there's often community activities there. There are small groups of kids that come and play near the soccer field, the soccer net. A lot of them apparently are from Xavier. In the September 11th, 2015 River East, thank you to the editor. Summer quietly and magically rolled into the start of school, which bumped into the unofficial end of summer. Congratulations to the Park and Recreation Department for a successful summer session. Lego camp was a big hit with a certain new kindergartner. I wonder who that was, Carla. Now Park and Recs is implementing its fall program, including sports. Players and cheerleaders are practicing. Thank you, Mr. Dwyer, Director, Parks and Rec, your staff and coaches for shifting the football players on the upper intermediate school Biz Field away from the town's north side fence and its property behind it. This reduces exposure risk to biting insects, thorny, prickly bushes, poison ivy, poison oak for the players, the coaches, and the spectators. However, both Biz, upper field, and lower field, Agalotti Field, are multi-use. In addition to Parks and Recreation activities, we have the Biz activities and the community activities. These areas are in significant need of cleanup, rehabilitation, and maintenance. There appears to be a prioritization issue which seems not to be totally in P&R purview. Over recent years, hundreds of thousands of grant dollars have been spent on the Portland Riverfront Park and for a study of the Route 17 Goodrich Park for Portland Town Park, the estimated price tag of which is $5 million. Portland Riverfront Park had not been designed with athletic fields. Portland Town Park has yet to go to town referendum. Hypothetically, if the latter is approved, this year's new kindergartners might well be at Biz when the Park and Rec is completed. Respectfully, Shirley Olson, Portland. That was a year ago. This has been going on for 9 years. Don't you think it's time that maybe it be taken care of? You know, the people should clean it up. It's town property. Can we have it all done over and send Mrs. Bransfield the bill? How's that sound? Thank you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I can see Ben's
I'm out
Wheels turning.
I'm out of coffee, huh?
Sure.
You can't tell by standing on Middlesex Avenue and looking over there. It looks pretty.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other comments on this side? Rick?
That's hard to have to follow, but my goodness.
I'll give you a lesson next
That was all right.
Thank you.
I'll be very brief. Again, I want to express my disappointment in the special meeting on Friday. Far be it for me to disagree with the bond counsel, but I think that was improperly noticed. I have attended every meeting that had to do with these bond questions, and had I had any idea that it would, that the decisions would have been made such as were made, I certainly would have attended that meeting. I would have changed my schedule. So it's very disappointing to me. I would have thought that this, if there was going to be discussion on the amounts and the appropriations and whatever, it would have said so. Could have very, very easily been done. So that's a problem. And for us to believe that, my phone, just turn it right off there. I can speak plenty loud. The other thing that does trouble me is the whole process here with the long-range capital, the bond questions. Again, just to refresh your memory, back over a year ago, on August 5th, 2015, the board unanimously passed a resolution that long-range capital commission, town staff, boards, commissions, and other resources consultants complete an infrastructure review by January 1st, 2016, prior to setting the budget. Further resolved that the report will include a summary of the assessment of infrastructure recommendations with a suggested timeline for action and implementation. There was a motion, and it was unanimous vote. Of course, that report never got done. Matter of fact, Long Range Capital, I don't believe ever was informed that they needed to do it, because if I'm not mistaken, correct me where I'm wrong, Michael, I asked you about it in March after the budget. So communication is certainly something that's important. And again, if this board is going to pass a unanimous resolution to seriously look at Long Range Capital by a certain date prior to setting a budget, I would hope that that's something that in your policy you might want to consider. That was never done. If that had been done, probably we wouldn't have had to have a special meeting on Friday at 4:45 in the afternoon. We'd have been ahead of the game. So, you know, again, there's all kinds of thoughts and different sides of the story. But again, I, for one, am extremely disappointed in how that meeting went. And I do disagree with bond counsel, and I do believe that there was more done there and set a date. And as a matter of fact, all that did get done was you set one for public hearing. So, thank you very much.
Any other comments?
Hi, Janet Nocheck, I'm the library director. I live in Portland also on 9 Fox Run Road. Just wanted to speak to a certain item that was in the must-do with the first priority list there. It's the library condensers. And the reason that's such a priority is on a daily basis right now. We've got a section of the library where the AC has not been turning on. In this nice, warm summer, we have our books coming in subjected to humidity. If it goes over the weekend, it's a few days in which some of our historical materials up in our little Vambina room, they're way past a healthy condition for our materials. You know, we had a Saturday, we had a couple of meetings, the Complete Streets met, and had to kind of move people around because the rooms were unusable, the meeting rooms. So just wanted to, you know, let you know that's one of the things that really is needed quite urgently. And it's, I think, $60,000, which is not hay, but right now, if we go this long weekend, if we don't have someone come in, which would be overtime, and go up on the roof and start them up, then it's going to be 3 days of bad weather for our books, our materials. So, and it will be in bad shape by Monday morning for all of us. So I just wanted to bring up that. And I appreciate you've got very many serious, urgent issues here, and I just hope that that would be something that could be included in your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. Michael, when I look at the, under the library, would that actually be in another location? Not in the library?
No, yeah, it's not in the library, it's under absolute, needs year.
No, I'm
for-
looking at the old building maintenance. Thank you. It is here, but
It
it's in
was here,
building.
yeah, I remember that coming up.
Right,
before.
I just wanted to make sure that I found it here.
It was 90, I think, gotta be number 6.
Okay.
Page 139.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on this side of the room? You actually aren't part of public.
That's all right. I just want you guys to finish things. I know how to field and Middlesex Avenue. Let's finish it. We've been repairing the track at the high school for years. It's got more repairs in it. Let's fix it and finish. That's all I want you to do, start finishing projects. We got a lot of little projects not done. Just finish them. Let's fix what we have before we add more. Like Roofront Park, you want to finish it, put the road in. Finish it. That's all I ask. We did the town hall and the police buck foreman. We did that project, and years later we put a roof on it, we put a building on it, we paved the parking lot. You didn't tell the taxpayers really what was needed. You got it under a threshold to get it done, and then we added money later. Let's not do the same thing.
Thank you. Chris?
So Chris Donahue, Long Range Capital. I'm also on the Park and Rec Commission, and I'm also the president of the local Portland Soccer Club. So Shirley mentioned Middlesex Avenue. I know you mentioned Carl has a plan for it, and again, you know, in this capital project, it's $225,000. And to echo all these comments, I think we need to finish things. So I think Carl's plan is good. I walked with him, and I think we set up that plan with Park and Rec Commission several years ago. And it's kind of being a nickel and dime project. Whenever we can find money, we'll do part of it. Again, I think there's a huge need for our park improvements. Again, I think trees are a need though at a park, just so you know, not a want. I'm just kidding on you. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But again, I think we, you know, again, I appreciate there's a lot of items on this list. I think, I think again, I think the Park and Rec Department does a lot of good things. It coordinates with a lot of other clubs. There's the football organization, the Little League organization, the Portland Soccer Club. There's a lot of youth in Portland that participate in events. Ben, your son is signed up for the Portland Soccer Club this fall, and hopefully you won't send your mother-in-law like you did last time instead of you.
I gotta work.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just think there's a lot of things that we need to do to take care of and maintain our current facilities, including libraries, public works, everything. And I think, again, we have a project. Again, I think it's going to be a nice entryway into this riverfront. I think it should look nice. I think there should be fields that are out there. I think irrigation is a big component of all the fields. All youth activities play more than one season. It's a year-round sport, and wear and tear on fields, I think, is something, and parks is something that we as a town need to invest in. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to mention that Carl and Robert and Michael is involved in the farm. There's football and soccer on the field. And they've come up with a way so that they can strike the field for both sports.
Gets a lot of use. There's a lot of children there. Any other comments?
Could we have clarification on the first question on whether we can shift? We've gone back and forth, and out of that 10 million, if we could just have clarification, if we have the right to not exceed it, that's fine, but if we have the right to shift within, I'd want to know, you know what I'm saying by that, right? No, not to reduce, to shift so in other words, if we wanted to change the sidewalk to 3.5, reduce it by 500 and add it to the miscellaneous 500, making that $1 million, do we have that ability? And I guess, so, I don't know who answers that, the bond guy. Okay, so that would be one, and then if we could also have clarification on whether that meeting was noticed properly or improperly, I'd want to know. And I'm not trying to cause any problems.
I'm telling you, I can't do any more than have our town attorney there. I can't get any more for you. That is the answer. You can have your own opinion, but I'm telling you, I noticed the meeting properly, and in order to have a public hearing, did we all know everything as far as how to put a question on the ballot? The bond council knows those things.
No, that's fine.
I
If we
didn't
could
think
just
we
ask, and
needed-
people make
honestly,
mistakes. I make mistakes.
Honestly, I'm just telling you.
But he's the one that told us how.
I mean, I attended the
Yeah.
meeting, I mean, I got the notice, it all seemed within, you know, the range of what we needed to discuss
Okay.
in order to make those decisions, you know.
Do I wish that this board had been able to do that in January, or in February, or in March, or in April? Yes, and I know, because I looked back and I looked at all the different times, in particular, the Route 17 project came to the Board of Selectmen and talked to us. It's over 17 times that they came and asked us about the question on the ballot. And I don't go to attorneys until I know what the question has to be. And frankly, our board has been struggling with how we're gonna fashion that question. And when I felt I couldn't wait any longer, I called Bruce Chudwick and I said, I need some assistance in how this question's gonna be formulated. And that's when he told me you need to have a public hearing. And then the town meeting is subsequent to the actual formulation of the question. And it's, if I could go back and think that it's the way old-fashioned town meetings were, they would want people to know that there's an actual ballot question. So you have that town meeting closer to that date. And I said to him, does that mean that they could change it? Is that a decisive meeting? He said his understanding is no. That would be for the purpose of noticing the town meeting. It could be, you talk, similar to what we do with the budget referendum. And indeed, when I looked back in the minutes for the high school project, we did meet in October in a town meeting, but it was adjourned to the vote. Yet the power for bond authorizations over $500,000 is at a referendum. If it's held at a special referendum, then it has to be at least 20% of all the electors show up. And a majority of that is then correct. I mean, if they say yes, if they say no, whatever. But if you don't get 20% at a special referendum, it fails. So that's why you try to have them on the ballot in November. So there's a lot of rules associated with doing this. I hope that, as Kitch pointed out, we have a policy in place. We can begin to become more adept at how we make these decisions. That's the whole idea, is to have a good list and then make the right decisions for the services of the town. However, there were two questions that I'm not sure I got answers to, and maybe I did, and I missed it. First question is, if you're doing road improvements, do you want the question to read, include water and sewer utilities that would be part of the repair of that road? Yes or no?
Does that road need the repair?
We know.
Well, if you're talking about Spring Street, I don't know that you're gonna repair this road and then have everything break and you gotta go and do it again, so I mean.
I would say put
To
it,
your
because
point.
you don't have to do it, you don't have to do it, at least you get yourself.
Can you put in
It's
the
a-
So I also
with the
say that-
option?
Yeah, that's what it would be, Kathy. It would be an option that you would have. And that's a
That's a good
specific,
idea.
okay, so is there consensus for that?
To fix it? To do the sewer and water?
To, if I could, to, and Tom will correct me. Tom, can you hear me?
We'd have to wait.
That if you're repairing a road and there is a need to replace the main of water and or sewer, that you would be able, that you're giving permission for the bond council to write that into the question. Thought I wrote it down in here.
Without increasing the total funds.
Correct.
So that means other monies would have, if it runs over, so we would have to take money from one of the other two projects.
Is that right, Tom? Did you hear that clarification question?
Pretty much all of that $3.5 million is written in, together. So, it's, I think they'll utilize it all at once. So the way that word literally is, the question is written, it would say something to the effect of, roadways, common water, sewer mains, and sidewalks, including sidewalks, adjacent to blah, blah, blah schools, in the amount of $3.5 million. And you utilize the $3.5 million to that amount, which I believe in my eyes, I think what Rick would have done is, you know, if you're gonna rip the road all up in town, we fixed a 100-year-old water main underneath it, the water main is broken. I thought it was implied, it's not implied. So to make that application, you need to just have, approve
Yeah, I think all he's saying is that you can add in the lines, the water and sewer, you put that in there, you can spend $3.5 million to take care of whatever you want, whether it's a sidewalk, the road, the lines, et cetera. The problem is, I don't think we have a number for Spring Street that includes all of those things.
But it
So
gives you the flexibility.
Gives you the flexibility.
Steep application had all in it, we won't have a steep application. Let's do the watering over discovery of the road.
So-
That's what a steep application, about $500,000 capital road.
So is there consensus to that?
Yes.
Yes or
No,
no?
I thought it was even a little broader that roads, you didn't have to even specify.
To say Spring Street.
No, you don't have to specify the street,
So
no.
we don't have to specify, there could be other roads other than the ones.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Just roads in
what my
general.
understanding was, okay.
but you would
yeah.
add the words water/sewer mains.
I thought bond counsel was somewhat ambiguous about that. I think from a practical standpoint, if you're putting this to the public, you should identify the roads that you're planning on doing. I don't.
I would agree with
It
that.
seems to make sense to me.
You can certainly do that.
No, I think that the leaning certainly leaning that way, whether it's possible to do it the other way, just to be ambiguous, but
What if we were able to get lots of money or whatever, the steep grant to replace that, then we wouldn't want it.
You wouldn't bond, and the Board of Selectmen has the discretion to do what they want even after this is done. So if you have some other avenue of getting the money, you know, if Mike decides to write a check for $1 million, you
Yeah.
factor that in and, you know, do.
Get more money for roads.
Sure, there you go.
Maybe the town will have a lot.
Perhaps.
And then the other question is the ability of the Board of Selectmen to make a decision that if the dollar figure associated with one of the tasks, let's say the park for an example, is not all used, that you would be given the discretion to use that extra appropriation on other projects that are so listed here. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, based on a vote.
Based on a vote of this board? Yes.
But
Do you want that to be included?
we've already put a high number on all the other set projects, so then what would you need the extra for?
No, if there is extra
If
money,
there
it
isn't.
costs us less. If it costs us $4 million and we have $6 million, we have $2 million extra.
Right, but you want to allocate it towards one of the other two items that have already been inflated, because there's a cushion. Tom made sure like the 5.5 million was 6 million and so on. There would be no reason to shift the money.
What about the sidewalks and roads?
We're saying if there was discretionary money left over, that we could vote as a board to
Yeah.
decide what to do with it, as a whole entire board.
That's what Tom said.
No, I get it, but it sounds like,
I thought all we could do was decrease them.
But if you're not spending the money, I mean.
So if I understand this,
Trying here.
each
I
one
don't
is
have
capped,
the answers.
however, bond counsel is saying that if we don't spend the full allotted amount for one of these three items, seems to me, that you can take that money and spend it on one of the other two items,
If you vote on it.
if we vote on it.
So the cap is only temporary. if
So
we
you
vote
could
on it.
potentially not spend any money on roads or capital improvements and have $10 million available for the park, or not spend any money on the park and have it available for the roads, or any combination thereof.
See, I don't think that's true. I think what you do is you as a public hearing, just call out what you're doing. And if whatever you're doing is done, i.e. the park, and you do it at $5 million instead of $6 million, you get $1 million, so what, say $500,000 left over, and you wanted to, and you needed more money to finish up a road, or one of the roads that you said that you might do, isn't done. Because generally what you do is you list more than you're gonna be able to do, so that if you can do them, you can do them. So, you know, that's what we brought to the public hearing, what's in the sidewalks, what's in the roads. That's what someone's describing at this public hearing.
but the reality is, we didn't list more than, just sidewalks alone was what, 3.2 million plus the park, you're at 9.2
I think it's
million
roads
plus.
too, Ben, isn't it? Is sidewalks?
No, I'm going by Rick's sidewalks, we're $3 million bucks
okay.
alone.
You
So,
gotta bring that down, you gotta drop it down to the million that you're gonna do in this area.
well, I'm just saying, we didn't put it at the number that
No,
it
we
needs to
didn't.
be.
That's right.
That's all I was getting at.
So I don't have an answer, I don't think. You don't want to give that flexibility to?
I don't know that I understand,
I think I don't understand.
because we seem to be saying two different things.
Yep. We'll try again.
So,
So it sounds like it's a way of moving the money after you get it approved, but it's allowable. I don't know why.
so let me just do it in an example then. So if this is approved for $10 million, 6 million, 3.5, and 500,000, those are the three numbers, right? And that's approved, and we don't spend $500,000 on the miscellaneous, what you're calling it.
What do you spend?
You spend zero, or you spend $1, I don't care. Let's say you spend $1.
I don't think you're meeting the objective of what you're doing, but the intent is if you have meet the objective of what you've done, now you're moving the money. So you say you do that, you use 350,000, 150 left over.
Oh, fair enough. So if I have $500,000 to do those 4 items, and we end up getting it done, and have $100,000 left over, you use that money for another purpose.
So now we go back to the board, the question is that, can we move this money to the park project? If you put that in if you put this language in this resolution, that will give you the ability to go back and do such a thing. Or if you don't put the language in the resolution, then you're steadfast at those amounts.
Fair enough, Tom, but what about the roads? So what if we decide for various reasons that the road isn't going to be done at all? That means you don't have access to that money? Because,
I mean, you have to have bond council. I don't know.
Well, he did discuss projects, and this has happened before this board's time, where there were authorizations for projects that were never done. And if you don't touch the money for, and Bruce Chudwick said 3 years, then that becomes defunct. You can't do it.
That's not the question he's asking. He wants to take that money and do something else with it.
I think the intent is you complete a project. If there's an overage, then that can be allocated to one of the other projects that have been identified. What Mr. Chudwick said is that you want to be as precise as you can with the voters, so they know what it is that you're asking for. And then, if that project is completed and there's money left over, could be allocated toward one of the other projects that may need that increase in money. But your example, Brian, if you didn't do anything with sidewalks, I would not vote to take that money and put it toward one of the other projects, because that is not the intent of the vote for the voters. The voters voted for sidewalks.
I think, and that's what Tom
well,
is saying.
if I
You
can,
know, if you use the
I mean, I'm
money-
just asking for clarification, but I understand, but really what they're voting for is they're just authorizing the bonding, and ultimately it's up to the Board of Selectmen based on conditions, whether we actually go forward or not, and issue it or do it, or to what extent, et cetera, et cetera. But-
As with,
Yeah, you don't have to issue anything.
Sure.
You can go out and get the approval and issue nothing.
you also have to go out before you, let's say the question passes, then you have to get rated by the rating agencies.
As a practical matter, I guess that what we're talking about, I don't know if it's ever coming to fruition. You know, the only one that's sort of loosey-goosey is the roads and the sidewalk with the $3.5 million. You know, so if you decide to do one road that costs $500,000, I suppose then you have extra money left over. But I don't know, but I would vote that you have the flexibility, but I don't know that it's ever going to come to fruition.
I think it's just to have that ability, should that occur. The only time I think, Brian, that could occur is if the economy shifts. And when you go out to bid, the bids come in favorable. And that has happened over the last decade or so, where bids have come in favorable. more favorable than what you thought they were going to be. Doesn't always happen.
That's the only thing that I would think about in this is that the less specific we make the question, then how does that influence the voter? Do the voters want to know exactly how the money's going to be spent, or do they want there to be leeway? You know, so tonight, first we heard there was a cap on each project, and now if we put this language in, then monies not spent could go toward one of the other projects. In some instances, and I bet amongst us sitting here, there's a project that we like better than another one. So we would tend to favor that. But what does the general voter want, and what will be most acceptable? I think that becomes a question.
I think that'll come out in public hearing.
You do? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And then we'll make that decision the night afterwards, is that right, Susan? Okay. So I think,
But what Bruce Chudwick had asked, Kitch, is if you wanted that flexibility, he could write it in the question that you will be looking at. You don't have
for Tuesday night.
the actual question. And I will also tell you, and again, going back and looking and researching how these questions are written, there's a ballot question, but then there's also 2 or 3 pages that go into detail
Of
as to,
explanation.
and the legalese, as some people call it, associated with those questions. That if there's a need for further research, once you've passed the question, you go back and you look and see what the lawyer had written in. So some of what he's asking is the water and sewer, if that's available to do those roads. And then the other would be to take any residual dollars and spend them within the confines of what these projects. And I think Brian said, or it was you, Kitch, probably not gonna have that. You know, and for that matter, you know, in looking at other towns, they'll often have a question about open space. One of our neighboring towns passes bonds that are available to the council to then buy open space as it becomes available. So how can that be terribly specific when you don't even know what's going to be available? I guess the specificity is the purchase of open space.
Right.
So do I understand that, just so I understand this, and whoever's here, so after the public hearing, the board can do whatever they want, essentially, with that question based on what they hear at the public hearing?
Based on the parameters that we discussed earlier.
The parameters meaning the 6, the 3, 3.5, and the 5, or you could change it to just 1 or 2 or whatever, or change the numbers altogether. You can change the question entirely?
I think you could probably eliminate money in projects. That's my understanding. You can't go higher.
During the Tuesday meeting,
Sure.
so, yeah,
That's why they're coming.
there's no council question.
And of course, they do this all the time. I'm like, I don't do this all the time. We don't. Is there any, so Tom, do you have the answers?
Oh, yes, yes.
Is that correct, Board?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Kathy? Ed? Fred? Yes. Yes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Is there a second?